In the vast canvas of our night sky, stars stand as the radiant jewels that adorn the celestial expanse. Their brilliance transcends mere twinkling. It carries with it the weight of eons and the mysteries of the universe. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, stars are the jewels that twinkle and ignite our imaginations. Their shine transcends time and space, connecting us to the universe in ways both profound and poetic. As we gaze up at the night sky, we can't help but wonder at the mysteries held within their radiant glow. Indeed, life can be unjust, and not every star is granted the opportunity to shine brilliantly. A star that doesn't shine in the highest peaks of the sky and instead is stuck somewhere in the ditches where no one looks is still a star though. Well, if this star wishes to shine and still embraces light in its heart, no force in the universe can extinguish its determination. On a chilly evening, this young lad decides to enter one of his favorite destinations of all times. A youth with locks of blonde hair and eyes the color of a clear winter, Azure Sky made a deliberate choice to step into a place that held a special place in his heart. Within these familiar walls lay a cherished treasure that held his fascination, an antique sword suspended from the wall. As he crossed the threshold, his gaze fixated upon a sword suspended in the room, its presence both mystifying and enchanting. As the boy fixed his gaze upon the sword, an unshakable sense of awe washed over him, as if its coolness had an enduring charm, impervious to the passage of time. In the midst of his reverie, a thunderous voice shattered his dreamy concentration, bearing an air of certainty that this individual anticipated his return to this very spot. The one who had intruded upon the lad's moment of contemplation was a girl named Zemina. Her tone, tinged with a hint of exasperation, called out to the boy with the name Vlad. She expressed her irritation by crossing her arms and delivered a straightforward message, remarking that she was well aware of his recent detachment from the world around him. Vlad's temper flared instantly, and he snapped back at Zemina, urging her not to push his buttons. He made it abundantly clear that these brief moments of solitude were a rare respite for him. Zemina absorbed this information, her concern gradually replacing her initial frustration. With a softer tone, she expressed her worry, hinting that it was precisely these instances that led people to gossip about him, a topic he seemed unaware of. Vlad's curiosity piqued and he inquired about these rumors, his eyes fixed on Zemina. However, Zemina hesitated to disclose the details. She lowered her voice to a hushed, secretive tone, posing a rather peculiar question. She asked Vlad if he still experienced strange occurrences, like hearing voices, when he picked up an ordinary object, such as a stick. Vlad remained silent, causing Zemina to draw her own conclusions. She pondered aloud about what kind of sins he might have committed in a past life to encounter such extraordinary and inexplicable events. Well, it wasn't Vlad's fault. Who would have ever expected to get struck by a lightning on a clear day? And that too, it was some sort of blackish lightning. Zemina, with a touch of concern in her voice, advised Vlad to stay within the confines of the shop for a while. She elaborated, mentioning that the new bishop in town was particularly sensitive to omens and signs. Adding to this, she disclosed the bishop's previous role as a heresy inquisitor, which meant that he had a keen eye for anything he deemed suspicious, often leading to severe consequences like being sent to the stakes for burning. Vlad's expression contorted with a mix of disgust and frustration as he questioned Zemina's choice to share such unsettling information. Zemina defended her intent, stating that her worry for him overrode her discretion. She reminded him that many had witnessed the peculiar lightning incident, and gossip was already circulating. Zemina suggested that Vlad should avoid standing around and daydreaming, as she feared that the church might become interested in him for all the wrong reasons. Vlad, though somewhat exasperated, assured her that he wasn't about to be forcibly taken away simply for gazing at a sword. Zemina couldn't help but shake her head, finding Vlad's obliviousness somewhat bemusing. She proposed a practical solution, half-jokingly, that he should consider buying the sword to put an end to his conspicuous contemplation. Vlad clarified to Zemina that the sword came with a hefty price tag of 5 gold coins. Zemina, wide-eyed and incredulous, questioned just how expensive a mere chunk of metal could be. She couldn't fathom why something like that would cost so much. With that money, they could live comfortably for an entire year. Their conversation took an unexpected turn when a third person, the shop owner, interjected with indignation, chastising them for disrespecting the sword as a stupid metal chunk. He scolded the young pair, demanding they leave his shop immediately. The shop owner firmly believed that such an extraordinary sword wasn't meant for kids from the back alleys. Unwilling to back down, Zemina engaged in a heated argument with the irate shop owner, contending that no one else would likely purchase the sword at such a steep price. She even questioned the man's sanity, suggesting that perhaps his time had come. The shop owner's anger flared even higher, and he retorted with harsh words, telling Zemina to return to her own shop and attend to her dishwashing duties. He dismissively referred to her as an immature child. Zemina, undeterred and with a defiant spirit, declared that she was a grown woman, refusing to be belittled by the shop owner's insults. Vlad placed a reassuring hand on Zemina's head, gently advising her not to let the situation upset her too much. Turning to the irate shop owner, he calmly informed the old man that they would take their leave. Zemina, however, wasn't willing to back down so easily. She attempted to break free from Vlad's grasp, asserting that she hadn't said anything disrespectful. The old man, still seething with anger, admonished her to stop arguing, labeling her as a rotten kid filled with venom. The old man's memory stirred, reminding him of a time when he had extended his kindness to Zemina by offering her food. Returning to his shop, he noticed the footprints on the floor, realizing that Vlad must have been standing there for quite some time, the dirt deeply ingrained into the wooden boards. With a sigh, he suggested to Vlad that he should concentrate on the practicality of making a living instead. The old man cautioned that nurturing dreams in such a challenging environment would only make life more difficult. He harbored a grim perspective, understanding all too well that a slender young lad seldom escaped the clutches of the slums. Moreover, he held a conviction that he would sell the sword to someone who had the potential to rise above this place, as he couldn't bear to see his final creation languish in this dismal setting. To him, the sword and Vlad shared a certain resilience, a capacity to shine even in the bleakest of circumstances. In the heart of the northern region lies the bustling hub of the Bayezid family's economic power, the city of Sora. Renowned as both the economic center and the guiding beacon of the northern territories, Sora's radiance was undeniable. However, within the brilliance of this city, dark shadows found their refuge. The slums, a stark contrast to the opulence of the city's center, served as a repository for all manner of squalor and vice, a place where society discarded its unwanted elements. Amidst the commotion, a robust man was observed forcefully dragging a girl into a brothel, asserting that she had attempted to swindle him. He claimed to be a seasoned mercenary with 2 decades of experience and expressed his anger at being sold counterfeit medicine. Vlad, taken aback by the scene, couldn't help but mutter that such occurrences were far from ordinary in a place like this. The man's attention shifted to Vlad, addressing him as a candle maker. He requested that Vlad fetch the madam of the establishment. Vlad responded firmly, stating that to meet with their madam, one needed to pay in gold coins, not mere silver. This response infuriated the man, who attempted to impart a lesson in business to Vlad. In a fit of frustration, the man suggested that Vlad bring his mother if the madam was unavailable. He also accused Vlad of selling him a fraudulent time-measuring candle, claiming that it had burned down completely before he could even do anything. Vlad responded to the man with a hint of sarcasm, suggesting that a mere 5-minute session wouldn't provide much enjoyment anyway. He audaciously advised the man to go rub his wife's ass if he lacked the funds to partake in such activities. As the confrontation grew louder and more heated, Vlad proposed a different approach to settle their dispute. He suggested that instead of arguing, they should put it to the test. Vlad challenged the man, proposing a bet involving the very candle in question. He declared that if the candle could burn for a full 5 minutes, the man could do as he pleased with the woman. The man, bewildered by the situation and Vlad's audacity, questioned why he had to engage in such a peculiar wager and deal with apparent scammers. Vlad's anger flared, and he insisted that they proceed with the bet. However, he added another condition. If the candle did indeed last for 5 minutes, he was going to beat the hell out of him. Recognizing a dangerous determination in Vlad's eyes, the man ultimately decided to heed his words and proceed with the test. The test commenced, and to Vlad's surprise, the candle indeed burned steadily for a full 5 minutes. Without hesitation, Vlad disregarded the man's protests and unleashed a flurry of blows, delivering a resounding thrashing to the now defeated individual. With each strike, Vlad proclaimed that the man was done for. In the midst of the altercation, Vlad denounced the man as the true scammer, asserting that no mercenary could be as hefty as him. He couldn't help but remember the man's callous request regarding his mother, fueling his anger further. Vlad sighed deeply and advised the man to show more consideration for those who had lost their mothers. Remaining true to his word, Vlad continued to deliver a punishing beating to the man, ensuring that the lesson was firmly learned. During breakfast the following day, Vlad raised his concerns with Jorge, mentioning that someone had tampered with their candle. Jorge took in this information calmly, considering the situation. However, the lady sitting next to them couldn't contain her reaction and grew visibly upset. Together, they decided to investigate and find the culprit responsible for the candle tampering. At that moment, the lady, who turned out to be Marcella, the Madam of Rose's Smiles, confessed to her prank. She admitted that she had deliberately manipulated the candle in an attempt to deceive the intoxicated patrons and extract more money from them. Vlad was taken aback, realizing that he had beaten the man the previous day for a reason that turned out to be entirely baseless. As Vlad made his way, he encountered a group of youngsters, and their leader commended him for his recent actions. The leader casually draped his arm around Vlad's shoulder and mentioned that he was in need of some money, suggesting that Vlad share a portion of his tips earned from selling candles. Vlad, not one to beat around the bush, asked Burley directly about his intentions. Burley replied, urging Vlad not to be so intimidating and explaining that they could engage in a fair exchange. Burley then proposed a deal to Vlad, offering a young and inexperienced pickpocket, a little boy, for 40 silver coins, which he considered to be a favorable arrangement. Vlad, however, wanted to inspect the boy's hands and ankles before making a decision. Burley reassured him that he had only given the boy a minor lesson, and that he was in good condition. Reluctantly, Vlad handed over the agreed-upon amount to Burley. As the gang prepared to depart, Vlad cynically remarked that they should consider killing their targets instead of involving him next time. Burley quickly clarified that they were gang members, not murderers. Back in their current location, the young boy apologized to Vlad, admitting that he had tried to take a cautious approach. Vlad inquired if the boy had sustained any injuries, to which the boy replied negatively. Vlad then advised the boy to leave the area promptly before he changed his mind. The boy expressed his gratitude and swiftly departed. Vlad couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret as he realized that his hard-earned 5 gold coins were once again gone due to the recent turn of events. He proceeded to meet with Harvin, a member of the Hoover family, a family of whale hunters. Harvin expressed his gratitude that the young boy hadn't suffered the same fate as him, losing fingers and ankles, becoming a grim example for the public. Shifting the conversation away from his own misfortune, Harvin mentioned that he had heard rumors about the tampered candles, although it had been some time, and not many believed the tales. He shared his doubt that someone like Marcella would engage in such activities. Vlad shared this skepticism, and Jorge seemed to share their sentiments. They couldn't fathom why their colleagues would be involved in such deeds. Harvin, however, suggested that if Marcella and others had indeed meddled with the candles, they must have had a compelling reason. According to him, there was a high likelihood that they needed money urgently. He cautioned Vlad to be cautious, as there was typically only one reason an organization would need to accumulate funds rapidly: preparation for a war against another organization. In the underbelly of Sora's slums, 5 formidable bosses reigned supreme. Jorge, known as the Whore's Knight, commanded one faction, while Black Bear, notorious for his swine butchering, ruled another. Dice, master of the gamblers, held sway over his domain, and Captain Hoover, the whale hunter, led yet another faction. Lastly, One-Armed Jack, aptly named the Money Bug, was the 5th and final boss. Together, they cast a shadow over the grim aspects of life, their influence quietly lurking in the dark corners of the city, much like the current moment. Amid Vlad's diligent work, One-Armed Jack approached him, inquiring about his boss. In this realm of uncertainty, accidents could occur without warning, and destruction could descend without notice, leaving no one truly safe or immune from the shifting tides of power. The presence of Moneybug in this small shop, in person, was quite astonishing to Vlad. It served as a confirmation that preparations for the looming conflict were indeed underway. Moneybug stood there patiently, awaiting an answer. However, one of his gang members couldn't contain his impatience. He raised his voice, demanding to know the whereabouts of Vlad's boss. Vlad, wearing a perplexed frown, responded vaguely, claiming ignorance about his boss's location. He emphasized that he was merely a candle seller and was not privy to any information. The man's frustration escalated, leading to a barrage of insults aimed at Vlad. In a sudden fit of rage, the man forcefully struck the table, shattering the candles into pieces. He shouted at Vlad, commanding him to locate his boss. Vlad remained composed, gazing steadily at the angered gang member as the candles scattered and shattered around them. Onlookers, including Zemina, who covered her mouth with her hands. Oh my, now they knew that this scenario wasn't going to end up nicely. Vlad let out a weary sigh, realizing that the expensive candles were now shattered beyond repair. He began the task of picking up the broken pieces, declaring that there would be no more sales for the day. The man's frustration continued to mount as he perceived Vlad's actions as unnecessary, and failing to grasp the gravity of the situation. In a tone laced with disrespect, Vlad sharply ordered the man, Hyung, to move his feet. Although Hyung understood Vlad's intention, he found it increasingly difficult to tolerate. Vlad repeated the same abusive command, prompting Hyung to become so infuriated that he raised his leg, intending to kick Vlad in the face. In the midst of the escalating conflict, Vlad grasped the fundamental truth that a fight is but a microcosm of war, a battleground with its intended terrain, planned circumstances, and unwavering determination. He swiftly assessed the situation and acted to protect himself before harm could befall him. In an instant, he seized a nearby stick, wielding it like a sword, and launched an attack against his adversary. He understood that victory in such a clash required not only intent but also meticulous planning and resolute determination. Onlookers were left in shock as what had started as a heated argument had now transformed into a full-fledged confrontation. Amid the spectators, Moneybug alone watched Vlad with a glint of admiration in his eyes. Vlad had arrived with a mission to challenge the unchanging rule of the back alleys where the victor always stood tall while the defeated remained beneath. The gang members were growing increasingly agitated, poised to launch an attack on Vlad as a group. However, Moneybug intervened, commanding them to halt. In a bold move, he declared his genuine fondness for Vlad. He explained that with only one arm, he hoped Vlad would be more tolerant of the commotion. Vlad, straightforward as ever, assured Moneybug that he didn't discriminate against anyone with disabilities. Moneybug burst into hearty laughter, clearly warming to Vlad even further. He informed Vlad that they would definitely have a private conversation later. Moneybug's curiosity got the best of him as he inquired about the individual Vlad had confronted earlier. Vlad responded in his usual blunt manner, stating that since Moneybug couldn't recall, it was likely that the person had met an early demise. Their conversation was briefly interrupted when Jorge, Vlad's boss and the whore's knight, interjected. Jorge expressed regret, mentioning that if Moneybug had given him advance notice of his arrival, he could have prepared some grilled meat. Moneybug responded with a smile, indicating that their relationship wasn't quite at that level of closeness. Jorge, in response to the presence of their guest, suggested that they move upstairs for a more private conversation. Moneybug, while appreciating the offer of grilled meat, instead inquired if Jorge had some good liquor available. Jorge assured him that when it came to showing hospitality, Marcelo was not one to disappoint. Moneybug expressed his readiness to partake in some fine spirits. As they ascended to the upper level, Vlad couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, realizing he had narrowly escaped a potentially dangerous situation. He began to count the number of candles that had been broken, placing them back into their box. However, his attention was once again drawn to Moneybug, who called him over and regarded him as a rising star. Moneybug mentioned that Vlad's boss had spoken highly of him. Moneybug, confident in his judgment of character, extended an offer to Vlad, suggesting that when he grew tired of the scent of burning candles, he should consider working for him. Vlad boldly asserted that he had no qualms about his current employment, as he was well-fed, adequately compensated, and enjoyed peaceful nights. Moneybug laughed heartily and declared that he could provide all those comforts as well. Moneybug casually tossed a gold coin to Vlad as compensation for the broken candles. Vlad, surprised by the generosity, remarked that it was far too much. In response, Moneybug reassured Vlad that if he chose to work for him, he would have access to as many of those gold coins as he desired, emphasizing his moniker, Moneybug. Before leaving, Moneybug expressed his gratitude to Jorge for the delicious liquor. As they departed, Vlad couldn't help but notice that Moneybug appeared content, leaving him to wonder if their conversation had indeed gone well. Upon Zemina's call, Vlad made his way upstairs to meet Jorge. His boss presented him with a small, sharp knife, explaining that he had intended to give it to Vlad later, but the current circumstances required him to receive it earlier. Jorge emphasized that Vlad should carry it with him at all times. Vlad couldn't help but sense the tension in the room. The mood indicated that the conversation between Jorge and one-armed Jack was a catastrophe. It seemed that the conversation had not gone well and may have led to a disastrous outcome. Jorge, in a serious tone, informed Vlad that he should refrain from selling candles moving forward. Vlad, eager to contribute to the gang in different ways, suggested options like money collection or patrolling the area. However, Jorge revealed that they had received a tip regarding Moneybug's activities, specifically that he was bringing in individuals from outside, former mercenaries who used to be knights. Vlad immediately drew a connection, likening these newcomers to Jorge himself. Jorge confirmed his observation, explaining that even for one-armed Jack, who commanded a large number of men, facing a former knight like himself was a formidable challenge. After all, a pack of sheep was no match for a wolf. However, by introducing swordsmen on par with knights, this delicate balance was disrupted. Jorge emphasized that they were now at a disadvantage, which was precisely why the gang needed Vlad's assistance urgently. Jorge hinted that he would soon assign Vlad his first mission, marking a significant step in Vlad's involvement with the gang's operations. As Vlad contemplated his role within the gang, he couldn't help but think of Harvin, a disabled man without fingers and the ability to walk. Harvin's remarkable determination and intellect had led him to self-educate in language and mathematics, ultimately securing a position under Captain Hoover. Witnessing Harvin's journey, Vlad realized that effort and learning could propel an individual to higher places. Inspired by this realization, Vlad decided to embark on something extraordinary. He picked up a rod and attempted to wield it like a sword. However, as he did so, the familiar voice from within resurfaced. The voice offered suggestions, advising Vlad to adjust the angle of his elbow as he swung the rod. Vlad grew irritated by this interference. It had been 1 month since he had started hearing this voice, an occurrence that coincided with being struck by jet black lightning. These eerie whispers would manifest whenever Vlad held a sword or anything resembling it. Well, Vlad couldn't help but conclude that he would need holy water before considering the purchase of a sword. Vlad, determined to concentrate and improve his swordsmanship, made the decision to ignore the voice within him, as people had advised him. He understood that the more he engaged with it, the stronger its hold on him would become. He needed to focus solely on honing his skills. With unwavering resolve, Vlad cleared his mind, channeled all his strength, and struck with determination. Once more, the voice guided him, advising him to narrow his movements. Vlad decided to follow the guidance for once, and to his surprise, the difference was palpable. It was no longer mere swinging. This felt like a genuine sword path. Vlad couldn't help but wonder what had taken residence in his head. On an exceptionally cold night, a man was engrossed in the meticulous task of cleaning his sword, muttering about the unforgiving winter air that seemed to chill him to his very bones. He pondered aloud, speculating that the person he was thinking about was either incredibly foolish, or perhaps intentionally acting foolishly. Although he wasn't entirely sure who he was addressing, the man called out for the individual to reveal themselves, as they were expected. From a distance, a voice responded, inquiring if the man was Sir Stanga. He affirmed his identity as Stanga. The individual, who finally appeared, was none other than Vlad. Stanga had heard that the guide was from the slums and commented on Vlad's appearance, noting that with his blonde hair and blue eyes, one might mistake him for a noble. Vlad got straight to the point, presenting a letter from his boss. Stanga read the letter and deduced that the opposing organization had hired a former knight as a mercenary, prompting Jorge to seek his assistance. Vlad confirmed that he would serve as the guide and informed Stanga that they should arrive at their destination 2 days from now, under the cover of night. As they walked, Stanga expressed his reservations to Vlad, questioning whether it was wise to follow someone he considered foolish. Vlad turned to him and defended himself, emphasizing that, at the very least, he was capable of guiding Stanga. Stanga remained skeptical, believing that Vlad's involvement in what he considered a foolish endeavor was evidence of his own lack of intelligence. Stanga issued a stern warning to Vlad, declaring that if he disagreed with the chosen path along their journey, he would not hesitate to kill him. Vlad, not wanting to engage further with this seemingly irrational man, urged him to focus on keeping up. Vlad was determined not to jeopardize his first mission. Stanga, perplexed by Vlad's response, had intended to appear threatening, but Vlad simply brushed it off. Stanga couldn't help but smile, realizing why Jorge held Vlad in high regard. He continued to follow Vlad and remarked that Vlad was a young individual worthy of nurturing. As the cold became too harsh to endure, Stanga and Vlad decided to take a break. They started a fire in a cave, relishing the warmth it provided. During this respite, Vlad couldn't help but fix his gaze on Stanga, a fact that didn't go unnoticed by the retired knight. Stanga inquired about Vlad's intent and asked if it was his first encounter with a retired knight. Vlad admitted that this was, in fact, his first close encounter with a retired knight. Stanga then asked Vlad if he hailed from the countryside, but Vlad ignored the question and instead asked where Stanga was from. Stanga responded that he was from Dikia. Vlad couldn't resist taunting him, remarking that Dikia was indeed a country. Stanga, clearly agitated by Vlad's comment about Dikia, issued a stern warning, stating that Vlad better not lose their way, or he would take drastic measures. While Vlad was unpacking the beef, he urged Stanga not to make such menacing remarks, explaining that he had heard that jokes made by knights were often veiled threats. Stanga ignored him and instead focused on the beef jerky that looked fresh. Stanga inquired if Vlad had his share of food, to which Vlad somewhat selfishly admitted that he hadn't packed much for himself. Concerned, Vlad then asked Stanga if he had anything to eat. Stanga did have food, but damn, those beefy jerky smelled so good. Stanga attempted to take on a mentoring role, and asked Vlad if he had any questions for him as a senior. He then proposed a deal, offering to answer one question in exchange for one piece of jerky. However, Vlad was not fooled by Stanga's trick and told him that if he had a question, he should simply ask. Well, the brat didn't understand that this man had pride. Stanga emphasized the principle that knights only received things when they gave something in exchange. Vlad, however, argued that since he was now retired, it didn't matter. Stanga remained committed to this principle. Vlad decided to ask him some curious questions, starting with his name and age. Stanga revealed his name and stated that he was 42 years old. Then Vlad posed a more intriguing question, inquiring if Stanga knew how to use aura. Stanga didn't underestimate Vlad's innocence, remarking that it was only on the surface. He explained that not all knights possess the ability to wield aura, and utilizing aura in a real combat situation was an entirely different challenge. Vlad's primary interest was whether Stanga possessed the ability to use aura. Stanga chose to respond with a smile, and Vlad understood the answer. In a generous gesture, Vlad offered Stanga all the beef jerky, but Stanga remained true to his principle. However, Stanga admitted that there were times when he did things on a whim. He explained that he had been subsisting on jerky for the past few days, and so he agreed to the offer. Vlad was taken aback, witnessing this rare occurrence. Stanga then unsheathed his sword and closed his left eye. Vlad questioned the reason behind closing his eye, to which Stanga explained that he needed to summon his aura from deep within his soul. He urged Vlad to watch closely, as this was the essence of knights. With a remarkable display, Stanga presented his aura, and a brilliant light radiated from his sword, nearly blinding Vlad in the process. Continuing their journey, Stanga expressed his feelings of being gross, comparing himself to a hobo. Vlad suggested that it was better to look a bit disheveled, as it was preferable to appear as a hobo rather than a knight. However, Stanga clarified that he wasn't referring to his appearance but rather his mood. He had the pride of a knight and wasn't thrilled about going through this particular route. Vlad explained that they were instructed to escort him secretly, which was why they couldn't use the main gate. To alleviate Stanga's concerns, Vlad assured him that he would prepare a bath for him once they arrived at their destination. As they continued down the path, Stanga couldn't help but notice the unsettling quietness of the surroundings. Vlad explained that it was quiet because it was that time of the night. The atmosphere in the area took a grim turn as they encountered multiple dead bodies strewn across the ground, suggesting that a battle had recently taken place. Vlad decided it was best to split up, informing Stanga about the existence of a back door known only to their organization members. He proposed that they should meet later and quickly went through the main gate. Vlad successfully entered the area, where he was greeted by Jorge. Jorge explained that they had been attacked by the money leech, who had struck first. Dealing with those who controlled money proved to be a challenge on a different level. Vlad expressed his concern for Jorge, who was now covered in bandages. Jorge explained that it had been a while since he had faced someone on the level of a knight, which had led to his injuries. With the situation now under control, Jorge inquired if Vlad had brought Stanga with him. Vlad informed him that the main gate was being watched, so he had directed Stanga to the back door, and he was confident that Stanga should have arrived by now. Jorge saw this as good news and declared their intention to attack the money leech the following day. This time, they were going to end things. Jorge continued to inquire about Stanga, wanting to know more about him. Vlad shared his positive impression of Stanga, highlighting his good qualities and nimbleness. However, Vlad hesitated to reveal Stanga's ability to use aura until Jorge pressed for more information. Finally, Vlad disclosed that Stanga was indeed a knight who could use aura and expressed his confidence in their upcoming mission. Jorge was visibly surprised by this revelation. Just as they discussed Stanga's abilities, Vlad sensed Stanga's presence approaching. Jorge sought confirmation from Vlad about Stanga's aura use, to which Vlad affirmed that he had witnessed it. However, Jorge then instructed Vlad to quickly get behind him, explaining that the real Stanga didn't know how to use aura. As the imposter entered the room, he greeted Jorge with a wickedly happy demeanor, as he was meeting Jorge after a long time. As Stanga and Jorge prepared for battle, Vlad positioned himself behind Jorge. Stanga taunted Jorge, remarking that he had changed significantly. Jorge demanded to know why Stanga had come at this moment. Stanga revealed that Count Gaydar had passed away, pouring himself a drink and toasting to the new Count Sigmund. Jorge became furious and charged at Stanga, who effortlessly dodged the attack. Stanga mentioned that his first order from Count Sigmund was to bring back the deserter knight Jorge. Furious Jorge insisted that Sigmund was not his lord and engaged in combat, with Stanga wreaking havoc in the room. Meanwhile, Vlad grabbed Marcella and hurriedly escorted her out of the room. When asked by other members what was happening, Vlad ordered everyone to move to a safer location and proceeded to explain the situation. Suddenly, Jorge was hurled out of the room, crashing onto the floor. Stanga followed, taunting him. Vlad threw the dagger Jorge had given him at Stanga, but it was effortlessly blocked. Stanga charged at Jorge again, who narrowly dodged his attack. Stanga questioned why Jorge had not followed orders that day, and Jorge replied that he wouldn't obey dogshit orders. Stanga mocked him and prepared to unleash his aura. His sword began to glow once more as he sliced countless cuts into Jorge's body. Vlad attempted to intervene, running towards Stanga, but it was too late. A massive explosion engulfed the room. Coughing amid the rubble, Vlad witnessed the lifeless bodies of his comrades. Consumed by anger and frustration, he noticed Jorge, who was now lifeless, held by Stanga's grasp. Vlad reminisced about the fond memories he had shared with Jorge. Fueled by anger, Vlad charged at Stanga, but a strange voice urged him to stop. Ignoring the voice, Vlad attacked Stanga, who realized that Vlad was using the sword path ability. Stanga was bewildered as to how the kid knew how to use it. Vlad attacked once more, but Stanga countered, kicking Vlad hard in the stomach, sending him crashing into the wall. Stanga began to reconsider his course of action, recognizing Vlad's innate talent. He believed it would be a waste to eliminate this promising prospect immediately. The strange voice urged Vlad to breathe and remain composed. Stanga approached Vlad, revealing that he was not Stanga but Godin. He threw all the beef jerky at Vlad's face and declared his departure. Vlad, seething with anger, shouted after him that he would kill him. Injured from the tavern brawl, Vlad walked out with Zemina's help. However, he suddenly experienced a sharp pain in his chest, causing him to fall to his knees. In that moment, he recalled Marcella's words from the tavern, how she had emphasized the differences between those who lived in the heart of the town and those in the slums. She reminded him that the town's elite could afford to fail and try again, but for them failure meant death. Marcella, in pain herself, urged Vlad to take his revenge and seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. A surge of confidence washed over Vlad. When he heard the other members approaching from behind, he stood up and took Zemina's hand, urging her to run with him. Vlad managed to escape from the pursuing members and found refuge in a house. However, fearing for their lives, Vlad decided that they needed to part ways once the situation calmed down. He explained to Zemina that it was too dangerous for them to stay together. Then unexpectedly, the old blacksmith arrived carrying a lantern. Both Vlad and Zemina readied themselves for a confrontation. Zemina, in her fear and anger, threatened the old man with her dagger, demanding the sword. Vlad attempted to calm her down, but she was unyielding. The old man realized that the circumstances had pushed her to this point, much like himself in the past. Zemina abruptly cut off a substantial portion of her hair, holding it in her hands with tears streaming down her face. She admitted that this might not be enough, but she promised to repay the old man later. She requested that he give the sword to Vlad. The old man, taken aback, stood still, questioning Vlad's intentions. He recognized Vlad's unwavering determination and his commitment to achieving his dreams, even though he hadn't yet fully spread his wings. Finally, the old man agreed and invited Vlad and Zemina to follow him. The old man wheeled out a hand carriage filled with trash, believing it to be their only way out. Some men suddenly appeared and blocked their path, questioning the old man's late-night activities. The old man yelled at them, blaming their earlier fighting for his inability to dispose of his trash. A hooded figure stood behind the carriage, catching the men's attention. When the hood was pulled back to reveal Zemina with her new haircut, they failed to recognize her and decided to let them pass. As the old man prepared to pull the cart away, one of the men ordered a search. The other guard began stabbing into the trash with his weapon. Vlad, still hidden within the garbage, remained unharmed. The guard eventually allowed them to proceed, but then decided to check inside the wagon. He stabbed forcefully into the trash until he was satisfied. Surprisingly, the guard who had stabbed the trash was the little boy's brother, whom Vlad had saved earlier in the tavern. He allowed them to leave and they reached their destination safely. The old man discarded the trash and threw Vlad outside the city walls while Zemina cried and prayed. Vlad rested in a cave, grasping his new sword upright, and asked a mysterious voice who it was. The voice replied that it didn't know. Vlad declared his intent to help the voice regain its memories, making it his sword even if it was akin to the devil. Determined to seek revenge and face the challenges ahead, Vlad steeled himself for the path before him. In the shadow of snowy mountains within an army camp, Joseph Bayezid, the second son of the Bayezid family, is deep in thought, planning his next moves. As Joseph sits in his camp, a burly man with an eye patch enters and he is introduced as Jaeger. Jaeger inquires if something is troubling Joseph. He goes on to inform Joseph that the monster subjugation is progressing smoothly with minimal casualties. However, Joseph remains concerned about the doubts that others may have regarding his command abilities, especially his stepbrother Rudiger. Joseph aspires to become the next count, fully aware of the family's strong military tradition and the fierce competition within the family for the position. Jaeger then brings up a suspicious soldier, hinting that when Joseph sees this soldier, he will understand better. He accompanies Joseph through the camp and they come across numerous dead goblins, all bearing identical sword/wounds. Joseph questions Jaeger about whether these killings were all the work of the same person. In a snowy forest clearing, a group of men finds themselves under attack by towering goblins and trolls. The trolls and goblins charge at the men, causing havoc and taking lives. In this dire moment, a blonde-haired man steps forward to confront the monsters. Those around him refer to him as the Praying Ribbon, but he is in fact Vlad. Determined to face the monsters head-on, Vlad charges with his sword, swiftly dispatching one of the trolls with a single slash. Suddenly, a voice inside his head warns him to dodge, and he listens just in time to evade a deadly attack. Though the voice taunts him, Vlad remains resolute, rising to his feet and continuing to engage the monsters. Despite the giant monster's powerful swing, Vlad manages to dodge it and with a quick slash to the creature's neck cleanly decapitates it. Upon hearing of the flying ribbon from Jaeger, Joseph becomes intrigued and instructs Jaeger to investigate this person immediately. Joseph is perplexed by what he sees on the goblins' lifeless bodies, recognizing the unrefined slashes and clumsy swings. However, he also realizes that this individual, despite their inexperience, possesses an innate talent for swordsmanship, making them a true genius. As the men loaded up the dead goblins into carts, one of them approached Vlad, addressing him as captain and commending him for his performance. Vlad sheathed his sword and curtly told the man to cease his chatter and focus on loading the kills. An offer for alternative work was made, but Vlad dismissed it, branding the man a fraud. Vlad issued a stern threat, commanding him to be quiet and continue cleaning. Terrified, the man hastily retreated. The others referred to him as Rimmon and observed him heading into the forest, assuming he was going to pray. In the forest, Vlad stabbed his sword into the ground and knelt beside it. The others mistook this for prayer, finding Vlad's demeanor cool and distinctive. In reality, Vlad was disappointed with his inability to dispatch the monster with a single strike. The voice within him attempted to explain his mistake, employing strange terms like whoosh and wham, leaving Vlad perplexed and unable to comprehend. Back at the military camp, Vlad joined the other men for a meal, although he didn't particularly like the food. When encouraged by the others to partake since it was free, Vlad abruptly stood up and left. He entered the church tent, bowing before Father Andreas the priest. Father Andreas praised Vlad and invited him to share breakfast, during which they prayed together before eating. Father Andreas noted Vlad's devotion and was impressed by him, unaware of Vlad's ulterior motives. Vlad secretly considered the meal to be true sustenance, revealing his hidden intentions known only to himself. Father Andreas took pride in Vlad and believed he needed guidance, mentioning that even Sir Joseph had heard of Vlad's exceptional skills. He informed Vlad that Jaeger had visited recently, inquiring about him, and had recommended him to Father Andreas. Father Andreas discussed the Bayezid family's reputation and how working for them could greatly improve Vlad's circumstances. Later in the forest, Vlad confided in the enigmatic voice. Vlad contemplated his conspicuous actions, but the voice argued they had no other option. Vlad asked if he could trust the voice given his recent proximity to the priest. Vlad now placed his trust in the voice and inquired whether they should flee. The voice suggested that perhaps they could overlook his fabricated identity, considering his skill. Vlad worried that his secret killing of a thieving mercenary would eventually be discovered, leading to charges of both identity fraud and murder. Vlad decided they should escape that very night. Suddenly, the voice alerted Vlad to someone approaching from behind. Vlad jumped up, brandishing his sword. It was Jaeger, who informed Vlad that Sir Joseph wanted to see him. Jaeger was impressed by Vlad's anticipatory skills, but Vlad considered making a run for it. The voice advised against it, leaving Vlad with no choice. Within the camp, Vlad and Jaeger entered Joseph's tent. Joseph greeted Vlad and Vlad bowed to him. Joseph expressed surprise at Vlad's appearance given his blonde hair and blue eyes, and asked if his name was Rimmon. Vlad initially agreed, but Jaeger slapped him hard across the face. Joseph expressed his disdain for liars and revealed Vlad's true name, Vlad of Sora. Sir Joseph confronts Vlad about his true identity, leaving Vlad feeling exposed and trapped. Joseph brings up Vlad's unmarried mother and how he couldn't uncover the identity of Vlad's father. He taunts Vlad, demanding to know who his father is, and Jaeger kicks Vlad's legs, causing him to fall to his knees. Joseph approaches Vlad, menacingly inquiring about where he learned swordsmanship. Vlad is filled with anger but remains helpless. Jaeger draws his sword, poised to attack Vlad when Vlad finally speaks up. Vlad reveals that he had a teacher who appeared and disappeared like lightning, withholding his name and sharing a secret never to be divulged. Joseph, taken aback by Vlad's unwavering gaze, offers an apology for their rough treatment. Vlad wonders if his lie has worked. Joseph then extends an offer to Vlad, promising power, freedom, and an opportunity to ascend to a higher position. Outside in the camp, Jaeger tests Vlad's sword skills with a curious crowd observing their training. Speculation abounds about whether Vlad will become Jaeger's disciple. Jaeger continuously strikes Vlad with his sword, and Vlad manages to block every attack. Although Jaeger taunts him and delivers powerful blows, Vlad starts to discern patterns. Vlad deflects one of Jaeger's strikes, drawing cheers from the onlookers, but he knows he hasn't truly succeeded. Jaeger had allowed him to land that blow. Jaeger instructs Vlad to spar like this twice a day, leaving Vlad in shock. The voice inside him reminds Vlad that this is how he will learn, and that getting hit is part of the process. Later, inside Joseph's tent, Jaeger informs him that Vlad can be of use. Joseph affirms that his judgment was correct and acknowledges Vlad's arrogance, attributing it to his upbringing in the slums. Joseph persuades Jaeger to teach Vlad, and Jaeger eventually agrees. In the snowy night, a guard in the camp thinks about Vlad serving under Sir Jaeger. As he shivers in the cold wind, he hears a voice behind him. Another guard, Roderick, asks if something is wrong and advises him to focus on his duty. The guard complies and reassures Roderick that everything is fine. Roderick departs, and the guard believes he won't be returning for another patrol, looking forward to some rest. However, he suddenly hears Roderick's voice again and awakens in fear. Realizing that Roderick is not addressing him but someone in the distance, the guard becomes alarmed. Roderick's voice abruptly falls silent, and the guard, trembling with fear, draws his weapon and cautiously approaches Roderick. As he nears, he witnesses a looming dark figure, the specter of a ghost. Here's the video ends. Guys, if you like this recap, then like the video. I will meet you in another video. Till then, bye.